so often, young designers especially, say they get a project to work on a logo for let's say tire company. It could be anything. A lot of times the first thing they'll do is they'll go to Google Images and say, show me logos for tire companies. And it all pops up. Well, it's the second you do that, you're already locked into something that it's really hard to break out of. So what I was trying to teach them is use your own ideas first. I'm not anti-Googling something or anti-research. I'm actually very pro-research. Use Google and other models to help really get your research down, but don't run to it for visuals. Use your brain first. Then once you've created stuff, then you can look at Google Images just to make sure you're not stepping on something that's already out there. But I just find that's a better workflow, because once you Google something or once you image search something, your mind can't help but be completely locked into that. And it's really hard to break that chain.
Nashville is alive with music, sure, but creativity also thrives in our art, marketing, technology, food, and in every corner of our community. On Creative Assembly's The Spark podcast, our mission is to amplify Nashville's diverse creative voices, foster growth through shared journeys, and inspire a city that thrives on collaboration. Each episode will take a deep dive into the lives and passions of Nashville's most innovative minds. We'll explore their creative processes, the challenges they face, and power of collaboration, along with so much more. Welcome to the Spark Podcast, brought to you by Snapshot, a digital agency on a mission to serve with heart, execute with excellence, and build something bigger together. And now, here's The Spark.
Hey, welcome to The Spark. I'm Mark Scrivner, your host. I'm super excited about today's episode. I've got a good friend here with me, Dale Addy. Dale, you've had an interesting trajectory through the years. You've went from working your way up at DVL before that merger happened. You went out and started your own DNA Creative and did that for quite a while. And I know we did a few projects together, and now you're doing full-time teaching at Belmont University, really like leading the next level of, or training the next level of leaders in the creative marketing space. So, you know, it's great to have you on the show, Dale. Look forward to learning more about you through this episode.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah. Well, maybe just to kick us off, Dale, maybe you could take us through your journey of kind of where you came from, what got you into this world.
Yeah. Well, I would say like most kids, I wanted to be in art. I wanted to be an artist. And like most parents, my dad said, you can't make any money in art. So he wanted me to go to business school. And I somehow learned along the way that graphic design was kind of the mixture of art and business. And that kind of kicked it off for me. And I ended up going to a good college almost by accident in San Luis Obispo, California, called Cal Poly. Very good design school that I didn't know at the time. I looked on in the catalog, and it was the farthest college from my house that offered graphic design. It was 4 hours away, and I said, I'm going there, and just kind of lucked into it. But I had some very good teachers there, guys like Dan Peel and Robert Reynolds, a fantastic watercolor painter, Mary Laporte, a fantastic designer. And they really kind of put me on the trajectory that you know, design is important, and design can be a very good career. And they also kind of, I guess, a little bit gave me the bug for teaching too, because Dan Peel, for example, he taught my advertising class, and he had been an art director on Madison Avenue for 20 years. And he was always rant and rave about how crazy this business is and all this kind of stuff, but you could tell he was having fun with it too. So that kind of thought, well, if he can do it, maybe I can do that someday too. So from there, from California, I moved back here. I had some family back here and got a job at a place called Erickson Marketing Communications before DVL. Okay. They're at the old Falls School building, if you know where that is. And I worked there for a couple years, and that's where I met April, my wife, who was also my business partner later on. And she went and worked corporate marketing for various different healthcare companies. And then I went to DVL, where I started out as a designer and kind of worked my way up over the eight and a half years I was there to associate creative director. And we worked on all different kinds of accounts. From Jack Daniels was a big one. I was not the only designer, but I was probably the lead designer when I left there, as well as Johnson & Murphy, as well as numerous other accounts. So had a lot of fun along the way doing that kind of stuff. I met some great people. Chuck Creasy and Nelson Eddy have always been very close friends and very good mentors to me, and made a huge impact on my career. And then one day, April and I decided that, maybe we should try our own thing. And we always felt like, I think you learn a lot from the different places you work at. Arrogantly, we thought, well, maybe we can do it a little bit better. I think everybody thinks they can. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if we did or not, but I hope we did it differently. We believed that we could be a small unit, just she and I. She was a writer and also did all the marketing stuff, and I was an art director. And so we made a good team, and we felt like we could give high-quality creative to our clients at less than what they were paying at big agencies. So that was kind of the first model. And then we also noticed that a lot of these big companies have like smaller projects that the agencies don't necessarily want to deal with, but could be big money makers for a smaller shop like us. So we worked with Nissan. We worked with, Nissan was a big one that gave us a big break, but there were several other companies along the way. Permobil was another big one we worked with. Most recently, Yellowwood, pressure-treated pine. Worked with those guys, and just had a core group of friends along the way that helped us. We had its ups and downs, but we really enjoyed doing it.
Yeah. Well, you did get to work under some amazing like creative directors. I know they're very well known in town. They've been there for a long time. Like what lessons did you take from them that maybe you still keep with you today, or maybe even share with some of your students?
Yeah. I think work hard, but this business should be fun. And I think that a lot of times students don't get that. They get so entrenched in their projects, and we have to get it done. And yes, you have deadlines, you have things you have to do, but this is a fun business. Let it be fun. And I always tell them, if you can think up an idea that requires you to go to Tahiti, then you can go to Tahiti, stuff like that. Or just don't take yourself too seriously. I jokingly say I had one boss that said we're not saving lives, and then I had another boss at Erickson who would say something like, there's something to be said for digging ditches. Mm-hmm. Hard work is good, and you learn a lot from that. It's like, don't take yourself too seriously. Don't believe that you're going to change the world through design or advertising. Take it for what it's worth, mm-hmm. and have fun with it.
Yeah, well, that's a good lesson. I guess, when I was doing some research on you, I saw that you did a project over at an exhibit mm-hmm. at Belmont, and it was called Conceptualizer, and it called out, the trap of like Googling for inspiration first, and now kids or creatives don't even have to Google anymore, or they can actually put it in, one of the large language models and get inspiration through that. But just kind of walk us through that personal process in generating original ideas. Sure. Before getting the work.
Yeah, well, the conceptualizer was, it actually came out of a exercise we used to do at Cal Poly for Mary LaPorte's illustration class, where mm-hmm. she would take 3 different words and mix them together, and then you would have to illustrate something based off of that. And what the conceptualizer was a big stand-up unit with 3 drums with different words on it. You'd spin the drums, get your 3 words, and then you would create something from that. And it kind of delved into how the human mind works. So if I say dog, carrot, hot air balloon, all of a sudden you don't even have to try to. Your mind starts jamming these things together in different ways. And that's kind of the conceptual process to me. It plays off of mind mapping and all those kind of things we do. So the point was to get students to use their ideas and don't just look for the easy solution. So often, young designers especially, they get a project to work on a logo for let's say tire company, it could be anything. A lot of times the first thing they'll do is they'll go to Google Images and say, show me logos for tire companies. And it all pops up. Well, the second you do that, you're already locked into something that it's really hard to break out of. So what I was trying to teach them is use your own ideas first. I'm not anti-Googling something or anti-research. I'm actually very pro-research. Use the Google and other models to help really get your research down, but don't run to it for visuals. Use your brain first. Then once you've created stuff, then you can look at Google Images just to make sure you're not stepping on something that's already out there. But I just find that's a better workflow, because once you Google something or once you image search something, your mind can't help but be completely locked into that, and it's really hard to break that chain. So that was the whole point of that, was to just some mind exercises to get you thinking with your brain instead of with letting the computer do the thinking for you.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great point. And also, like, I've heard it with even presenting logos to clients, and how most people present them with colors, and you should always present black and white first, because if somebody in that group hates the color red and you put an accent of red in there, but it's the very best logo, that there's a chance they're probably not going to like it.
Oh yeah, I tell my students that all the time. It's like, always present black and white. Always present the lowest fidelity thing you can get away with to the client, because that way the client won't get hung up on, I hate that typeface, or I hate that color, or I hate that photo. It's you need them to look at the idea, and that's hard for some clients. For you or I, we've been doing this forever. We can say, well, that's just kind of a throwaway. It can be anything you want. It's just we can look beyond that. But a lot of people that haven't been come up through the whole creative process have a really difficult time doing that. So I tell my students, present as low a fidelity as possible. It needs to be good, but don't waste tons and tons of time on something that could be thrown out immediately. Use your time on the hardcore creative thinking first.
Yeah, that's a great point. I wanted to invite you to our next Creative Assembly gathering. It's our relaxed, bi-monthly networking event in East Nashville, where ideas spark over drinks and creative collaborations come to life. We meet at 1530 Riverside Drive with light snacks, refreshments, and plenty of free parking. Whether you're an agency owner, part of a creative team, a freelancer, student, or even a business owner curious about collaboration, you're always welcome at Creative Assembly. RSVPs aren't required, but they help us plan for space and treats. Just search Creative Assembly Nashville on Eventbrite or visit creativeassembly.agency/events for details and the RSVP link. Come ready for connections, conversations, and creative collaboration. We can't wait to see you there. As you and April kind of scaled up DNA Creative, and by scaling up, I mean, you took on some pretty big clients here locally and nationally. Like, how did you scale with external teams, like, to really get these projects done?
We leaned on a lot of folks that we had met at our time at the agencies. At DVL, I had built up a network of a lot of freelance folks that I'd worked with, and then even after I left DVL, other designers or art directors and writers had left DVL as well to go do their own thing. So we had this kind of network group of folks that that we could pull from, that we knew we trusted, we knew did good work, that we worked well with. Mm-hmm. So April from her client side work, and then me from my agency work, we sort of, depending on the project, we knit together this sort of merry band of misfits to go out and tackle pretty much anything. And I felt like we kind of punched above our weight because of the groups we were able to bring together. Yeah.
What, who were some of those, maybe not who, but what types of people or agencies were, some of the better agency partners that you pulled in? Like, what were characteristics of them?
Yeah, just from past experience, knowing we played well together was the biggest thing. Doing good work was a given. It's always a given. But after that, it comes down to personalities. And do your personalities mesh well together? We had some folks that over the years we learned that we didn't mesh well, and we had to say, they do great work, but they're not for us necessarily. But what we tried to do is when we found those core group, a couple off the top of my head, Todd Crowder is a producer, David Stepp is a director and an editor. They did some great work with us. I wouldn't say for us, they were with us. We all worked together. And those are people, we would protect those relationships with our lives. They got paid before we got paid every time because was just good business. You take care of your people first. Then if there's any left over, you get paid. I know you apply to that same principle. It's just taking care of the folks that got you where you are.
Yeah, we've had a lot of agency owners on the show that have mentioned that same thing of how important it is taking care of like partners out there and paying them first and quickly. And there are some agencies that don't do that, and it's really hard to go get the right people around projects when you get that name out there.
Yeah, so definitely.
It's a good lesson. I guess you've done a ton of big stuff. What's one project that maybe you're the most proud of?
You know how it is with creative. Every project's kind of your baby.
Yeah, totally.
But if I had to point to a couple that we're really proud of, there are two that distinctly. Well, there's three, but I'll mention two. The first is it's actually a campaign we did for Belmont University back before I worked there, before I taught there at all. It was called Finish What You Started. It was for their adult degree program, and it was a television, radio, print, a full campaign. Telling people about how you can finish your degree. If, say, maybe you started your college degree and then for some reason life got in the way and you ended it, you could go back and finish it at Belmont, and they had all these incentives to do that. And that was important because we felt like that was really making a difference. We had people, when they found out, Belmont had case studies where people said, I heard this radio commercial and it made me go finish my college degree. Wow. Or I saw this TV commercial and why was this thing keep running? It's like that's all I ever saw, and we didn't have a huge media buy, but it clicked with them. And if you have a chance to help somebody like that, that's huge. And then the other project that was a lot of fun and we're proud of was we did the branding for the Country Music Hall of Fame Museum's Night Train to Nashville exhibit, which was around the roots of rhythm and blues in Nashville. And I think when we started that project, we didn't quite understand how powerful the whole rhythm and blues movement was in Nashville and how meaningful this project was to Nashville and to developing Music City into Music City. But we quickly learned along the way, and that was fun to see. And we heard that there was one particular artist we had on the logo for that show, and I was told by our client that his family drove him down the street and they had his banners on the logo, and he started crying when he saw the logo with his image on it and everything. How he was the face of this rhythm and blues movement. And to be part of something that important to our city was very cool.
Yeah. Was there ever a project that you took on that maybe didn't go so well and maybe if you could maybe teach the audience maybe how you got through it?
Yeah, there in the lifespan of every project, there's going to be a bump along the way, and the longer you're in this business, the more I learned to just get ready for it.
Yeah.
So just be able to adapt. You'll always have timelines change where, all of a sudden we need it 2 weeks before we thought we did, and you have to scramble to get it done. Or budgets change, and it's like, okay, we still want to deliver high quality work, but how can we scale things back and still do that? Or, parameters change, and you got to figure it out. And it's just being able to think on your feet and not panic in the moment. Take a deep breath. It's going to be okay, and figure out how you move forward. We've had major TV campaigns where the budget got cut by a large margin, and you're like, what do we do now? you find a way to adapt, and you find a way, okay, how can we do more with less days of shooting and stuff like that? And that's where your partners that you've worked with, you really know very well, come in, because you can say, this is a one-off. We had an issue. Let's figure it out. And they'll usually chip in and help. You can't do that every time, obviously. It can't always be a panic. But if there is, having a great team that you trust, that trusts you, they'll usually work with you and find a way to make it work out.
Yeah. Well, you left EVL to start DNA Creative, and the purpose was, hey, maybe we could do it better by being more affordable, by being faster, more nimble, and still producing, the same quality of work, that some of the big agencies are doing. And I think it's the way of the future is kind of the smaller, nimble agencies are the ones that are really excelling right now. Not that there aren't some great big agencies, but now you've went from that to what drew you into, I want to now go into education and start teaching, at Belmont University full time. And I'm sure you dipped your toe in the water first, but now you're all in. You're full time there, teaching the next creative people out in the community.
Yeah. Well, I blame a guy named Jeff Fuqua for that. He was and that's a joke. I don't blame him for it. I thank him for it. He was the design director at O'Moore College in Franklin, O'Moore College of Design in Franklin, just outside of downtown Franklin. And he had another friend of mine, Tim Templeton, come do a portfolio review for him. And Tim said, hey, you live right up the street. Come with me. So I went to this portfolio review, and we looked at the stuff. And afterwards, Jeff pulled me aside and said, hey, it seemed like you enjoyed yourself. You seem you're good at this. Why don't you come teach a class? And I kept throwing up roadblocks. Well, I don't have a master's degree. He goes, that's okay. I don't either. I'm working all day. I can't. He goes, we can teach at night. And every roadblock I threw up, he found a way to tear down. So I started. So I couldn't. It got to the point where I couldn't say no. It's like, okay, I'll try it. And my first class was an advertising class there. And I'll tell you, I've presented to CEOs and board of directors, and there's nothing more terrifying than walking into a room of 19 and 20-year-old students where you're teaching them how to do something. It's way more terrifying than talking to any group of board of directors. But it's also a lot of fun too. And I found out that I really enjoyed it, and I thought, okay, this is what I would like to do when I grow up.
Yeah.
And I started just I taught one class here or there every year. And the deeper I got into it, I thought, okay, well, if I really want to do this, I need to go get an MFA. So I went, Savannah College of Art and Design, SCAD, has an online program you can do. So I did that. And just because it's online doesn't mean it's not daunting. It is very, very intense. So I worked my way through that. And then, I had adjunct a little bit at Belmont, but I was told there really wasn't an opportunity for full-time positions. They weren't going to hire anytime soon. Well, things changed. There were mergers with O'Moore was absorbed by Belmont, as was Watkins, and then all of a sudden they needed more professors, and I heard about it, and I applied and kind of ran through the gauntlet on that, and was lucky enough to get the full-time position, and I really do enjoy it. Yeah. I would recommend it for anybody that it'll change your perspective on this business. It'll make this business exciting again.
Really? Mm-hmm. That's great to hear. Well, I mean, one thing that I've noticed from, a lot of the local universities, Belmont specifically, they are hiring industry experts to come in and teach class. And a lot of them are leaving the industry to come in and be full-time professors. But they're probably bringing a different level of experience to the students than not that there aren't, good traditional, professors, but just with the industry experience, it's got to be a game changer for these students, I would think.
I think so. I think the students recognize that, and they're always asking questions about, they want to hear the old war stories from, back in the agency days, and which is good, because it's good that they understand that, and I think we can give them a perspective of what it's really like to work through it. And like you said, there's a lot of great professors that may not have a whole lot of industry experience, but at Belmont we really kind of lean into that our faculty has industry experience because we feel like it's very important. And I feel like we're building something pretty special there.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to shift gears to more. There are a lot of students that listen to the Spark, so I want to shift gears a little bit and just ask you, in what you're seeing with your students, like how do you get them? How do you help them move from like execution to like strategic problem solving?
Yeah, that's a hard one because students are so entrenched in doing that sometimes the thinking gets pushed aside. They think if I make it visually appealing enough, it will cover for a bad concept, and it just won't. It was kind of funny. I was having a discussion earlier this morning, I teach history and philosophy of design.
Okay.
And Laszlo and the Holy Knowledge and the Bauhaus believed that the concept was more important than the execution. And I asked students if they believed that, and they kind of recoiled a little bit. And I said, well, if you think about it, that doesn't discount that the quality has to be great. But what that means is you can't cover for a bad concept with good execution. Mm-hmm. You have to have both. So the way I do it is in my classes, and I'm not the only one, several of the professors do it as well, is it's heavy on research. Probably more research than the students would actually like to do. But I'm always telling them, you're not designing for yourself. You're not even really designing for your client. You are, but who you're really designing for is your client's client, the end user. And until you understand them, you're not going to do good work. I always jokingly say I'm a 55-year-old guy, basically. I'm almost 55. I'm a 55-year-old guy, and it would be arrogant for me to design something for a bunch of college students without talking to college students. Mm-hmm. I don't know what they do, but that's the same way in any business. It's you have to know who you're working for, what makes them click, what are their hot button issues. If you do that, then you're designing something meaningful. If you don't do that, then you're just designing something for yourself. Mm-hmm. So I lean heavily into the research.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, we've had designers throughout the years, great designers, but, we've had young ones come out of school and, they take on their first project and they're ready to, like, rule the world and show you what they've got, and it's exciting, but, they're designing for an older audience, and they just think they've got it, like they know it. So hearing that, pretty important. Like you should probably ask some people that fall into your clients' age groups or demographics, whatever it is, and get a perspective before you actually start trudging down, a design path.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, if you're designing for an older market, you don't need to be setting things in 8-point type. You have to think of maybe they don't have the greatest eyesight in the world. Maybe make it a little bigger, help them out a little bit, and it's vice versa. You just know your audience is the main thing, and that's something we really, really stress at Belmont is understand who you're working for and design for them, not for yourself. Because and don't. If you do that, then there's less of a chance of something to just be thrown out outright, and then you have to start from scratch again. Or at least you have some backup to say, well, because sometimes your client isn't your end audience either. You have to say to your client, well, you may not like this, but we did some research into your target audience, and this is what makes them tick. Mm-hmm. And so sometimes it comes to educating your clients as well. Now, most agencies these days, or most clients these days, have a lot of research arms that they really know who they're working for, so it's not as much. But with some smaller clients, you have to do that sometimes.
Yeah. Well, what signals tell you that like a junior designer is ready to like lead the room?
I don't know that they're. I mean, you can tell that some are kind of natural leaders, but sometimes the quiet ones are the ones that'll really impress you. But to get up and stand up in front and pitch creative in a way, there's really no way to know that until they do it. So in my classes, at least, before a student ever pitches anything to a client or to whoever their final presentation, they'll do their presentation 2 or 3 times in front of me and the rest of the class, and we'll really critique them very, very harshly in a lot of ways to say, okay, you bobbled here, let's fix that. My philosophy is, it's kind of like the sports philosophy, that practice should be harder than the game. And if you do that, if you've run the gauntlet through the practice a couple times, then when you get to the game and the real pitch, you're ready for anything that's going to be thrown at you.
Yeah, well, you mentioned this just a second ago, and I know you've judged some of the Addy Awards in town, and I guess, what does separate, just award-chasing work from the really, business-moving work? And how do you teach your students the difference? Because there is an ego that goes into design, and it's like, am I designing for me and my portfolio, or am I truly designing for the client and what they're looking for?
Yeah, I mean, it goes back to that understanding the audience more than anything. I would have a couple analogies on that. Is student work, it can be a little more edgy because their audience is the creative directors they're showing their portfolio to, so they can take more risks for that. But as far as chasing awards and things like that, I tell my students, don't get hung up on awards. Awards come down to, in all the judging I've done, awards come down to 3 people's opinions, and that's all it is. I mean, we've had work personally at DNA, and then also I've had student work that won a silver on the local level, but went to regionals and won gold. So it should be harder at the next level, but it just comes down to personalities. And at DNA, April and I feel like some of our best work never won any awards, but it made a difference. I can think specifically, we did a lot of work for a company called Permobil, which is the world's largest manufacturer of power wheelchairs. And you think of power wheelchairs, you think of poor folks that don't have mobility issues and stuff like that. But we had a marketing director there that he said Permobil is more like kind of the rock star of power wheelchairs, and a lot of their clientele was doing a lot of stuff that it wasn't what you would think of. When I started talking to these guys, I had that first impression of, oh, they're having all these mobility issues. They can't do all this stuff. Well, these guys are out water skiing every weekend. They have modified wakeboards and stuff like that, and they're doing all this stuff. I'm like, I'm not doing that. So once you get out of that mindset of poor, pitiful them, to see that they're just people and they want to live their life just the same way as everybody else, and this device helps them do that, it opens things up. I mean, we had seen some videos of guys crowd surfing in wheelchairs. I thought, well, we can do something like that, or streaking through the quad running from the police, all kinds of goofy stuff like this, because it was more of it was life amplified.
Oh yeah.
So just realizing that people are people, and once you do that, it takes it to a whole nother level. And so, like I said, we had a great time doing those campaigns, and we had a marketing director that let us do that kind of stuff. But that stuff never really won any awards, because if you're judging a Jack Daniels poster next to a power wheelchair poster, I don't care how funky your power wheelchair poster is, Jack Daniels is going to win every day of the week. It's just, I think it's the mindset of the judges too, that they have this perception of the way things should be as opposed to the way things really are.
Yeah. That's a great point. What, I guess now that you've taught at Belmont for a few years, what do you wish more Nashville agencies did to nurture entry-level talent these days?
Yeah, be very honest in your critiques. If they take on, and most are, but a lot of times I think people are creative directors, or they don't want to hurt somebody's feelings. Students don't want that. Students want honest to goodness, hard-headed critiques. A lot of times the students, they'll feel they'll feel let down if you only say nice things about the work. They want the real critique. If it's not good, tell them. Mm-hmm. If somebody intern for you, be brutally honest when you need to be, because the students want that. They want honest feedback. They don't want you to sugarcoat it. Mm-hmm. And I would say, get involved. We welcome anybody that wants to either come and teach at Belmont, like an adjunct to class, or just come and speak to a class or do a guest critique. We're always looking for folks because, the students respect that, and they want to be working with working professionals.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I'm sure you have a lot of students that come out and maybe they're not going to work for anybody. They're going to go start their own agency. And, I guess coming out of school, young man or woman, starting an agency, what kind of advice do you give them?
Well, I really try to discourage them from doing that right away. The only reason why April and I were successful at DNA Creative is because we had built relationships over the years from working on the corporate side and then on the agency side. So I've had students that want to go immediately out and do their own work. And I said, well, you can do that, but it's very hard. And your first few years as a designer, you're going to make a lot of mistakes. And agencies know that. They know that young designers are going to make mistakes. And they're okay with that to help them nurture and grow. But if you're doing it on your own and you make a mistake, it could potentially cost you a lot of money. And so you need to be careful with that. So I actually encourage them to go work for somebody else for a few years to get their feet under them, to understand how they work. But if they're dead set on it, then I say, okay, the first thing you need to do is you need to get a good accountant. You need to. I go through all the business lists.
Yeah.
Get a business license. All the stuff they don't ever think about. All the back of house stuff that they're like, wait, I have to do that. I have to pay taxes. Wait, what's this? And so I try to coach them up as best. And April helps a lot too, to coach them up as best we can on what it takes to actually run a business. But we do try to discourage them from doing that at least for a few years.
I bet, Dale, when you give them that list, I bet you they go, Dale, you're right. I'm going to go work for somebody for a little bit of time. So,
yeah, I've had a few that, oh man, I had one student, he was doing a bunch of freelance work and doing real well with it, making a lot of money. And I said, so how much are you saving for taxes? And he looked at me like, what are you talking about? I said, uh-oh, this is not good. Mm-hmm. So we had a long talk about you need to be saving about a third of this money because you're just going to give it to the government and just plan on that. And you can't spend every dime you make. And I think that's the biggest trap that a lot of people fall into when they decide to freelance is they think, well, I made this money. I'm just going to take it and spend it. It's great. But you got to realize that business is cyclical. You're going to have times where you're doing great and times where you're not doing so great. And the only way you weather the not so great times is if you save the money and you've built up the accounts that you can weather the bad times.
Yeah.
So just try to impart kind of life lessons to them more than anything, I guess.
Yeah. Well, Dale, as we wrap up, is there anything that maybe I didn't ask that you think could help an agency owner, a design or creative or marketing student coming out? Anything that you'd want to leave the audience with?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of both. You're talking what could help an agency and also could help students work together. If you're in the Nashville area, come see us at Belmont. We would love to collaborate with you on projects, have you critique, talk to our students. And the students would get a lot out of it. And I think you would get a lot out of it too. We have, and not just Belmont, there's other great schools around here as well. But there's a lot of young talent. Tap into that. All these students are looking for internships. It's a way to kind of test drive some of the best talent at, a little bit of money, but not much, not near as much as hiring a full-time employee. Do that. Like I said, there's a lot more talent than I think a lot of people think. They think student, they think, oh, well, maybe they're not as good. But I'm here to tell you they're pretty strong.
Yeah.
So lean into that. Give them opportunities. You'll be better for it by seeing what's out there, and they'll be better for it from learning from you. So I would just say get involved. And if you're not in Nashville, then find a local college or university where you are and get involved. That was my realization the further we got into DNA Creative, is that I think part of being a industry leader or industry participant is part of the obligation is you have to give back to the next generation. It's
Very
not
good
just
point.
you. It's if you're going to really do something meaningful, you have to help foster the next group, because none of us are going to be around forever, and none of us are going to be as good as we once thought we were. So help coach up the others to kind of take the lead once we say, okay, it's time for us to hang it up.
Yeah, Dale, such a great point, and thank you for everything you're doing in Nashville to help us as agency owners get the next level of talent that's going to come into the agencies. Appreciate you, working at Belmont and all the great creative work you've done in the Nashville market, and I've enjoyed our friendship over the years and getting to know you better, and just love everything that you've done up to this point. So thank you, and again, that's why we do this show is to give back and to help try to energize the creative community here in Nashville, and really appreciate you being on the Spark today. You brought a lot of good lessons, and appreciate everything you're doing for the community. So thank you, and to all the audience, just give a big shout out and thank you for joining us week in and week out on the Spark podcast. It's our way to give back to the creative community and lift up some of the agency and creative leaders around town. So thanks again, and we'll catch you next time on The Spark.
And that's a wrap on this episode of The Spark from Creative Assembly. Thanks for spending time with us and exploring the minds shaping Nashville's creative future. If you're walking away more inspired, connected, or energized, that's exactly the point. A big thank you to our sponsor, Snapshot, and the incredible team behind the scenes who make this show possible. Your support fuels every conversation and keeps collaboration alive. So if you haven't already, subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and leave us a review. Thanks again for tuning in. Until next time, stay creative, stay curious, and keep that spark.